And we're live. Welcome to Love and Money Secrets TV, and we are here on page 42. We are going to be reading the next section of the Mitochondriac Manifesto. Don't know why this little camera is not focusing the way it should be, but we'll have to check that out later. In the meanwhile, let's get started on page 42, and here we go. So mitochondria help harvest the sun's energy from excited electrons. So it goes on to say here, in plant photosynthesis, photons from the sun hit electrons in chlorophyll. Let's stop right there. That is one of the key reasons why it's so important to not only eat green leafy vegetables, any vegetables for that matter, because vegetables, of course, take in the sunlight through photosynthesis. It has amounts of phytonutrients, and it has polyphenols, and of course, it also has chlorophyll. And here it's telling us that in plant photosynthesis, photons from the sun hit electrons in chlorophyll, because chlorophyll, of course, is in the plants, right? If the photons has enough energy, meaning a certain frequency of light, the electron will absorb that photon and jump to a higher energy level around the nucleus called an orbital. That's pretty fascinating. So again, I want to read that again because that's so important. This is one of the key reasons why it's so important to eat God-made food as opposed to dead, man-made, processed food. Okay, this is the key right here. If the photon has enough energy, meaning a certain frequency of light, because it's getting it from the sun, right? The electron will absorb that photon and jump to a higher energy level around the nucleus called an orbital. And it's called an orbital because it's a circle that's going around in circles around the nucleus. The pathway of orbitals and their energy level are increased, that's stepped up, with nothing in between. So what that's telling you is that it's clean energy. You get a bump up in energy without resistance. And so now you have a boost of energy. And if you look at the cells in the body, inside each cell, we have 56 trillion cells in the body. 56 trillion cells in the body. That's a lot of cells, right? And in each cell, you have these tiny little organelles called mitochondria. Therefore, the name of the book, the Mitochondriac Manifesto. Hey, it's focused. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It goes in and out of focus. Anyhow, I digress. So those mitochondria are the little factories that process ATP, which are the energy suppliers for the cells, for the entire body, for every organ system, for you as an entire being. Starting to get the picture of how this actually is working at a mitochondria level. All right, so let's keep moving forward. So the pathway of orbitals and that energy level are increased, stepped up with nothing in between. The photon then becomes pure energy in the form of the electron's higher orbital energy state. So you don't have to be perfect to do this. Corresponding to the frequency of light absorbed. The more energy a light photon has, the higher and more powerful the resulting electron orbital. However, if the photon has too much energy, the electron overshoots the atom's highest orbital, escaping in orbit and atom entirely. Science calls the escape of electrons from an atom ionization. Radioactivity is the most potent ionizer. On the other hand, if the photon does not have enough energy for the electron to reach a higher orbital, meaning the wrong light spectrum, nothing changes. The electron ignores the photon and stays in its present orbital. These phenomena explain the absorption spectrum of elements as well as their emission spectrum. So this is starting to give you a picture. It's telling you if there is enough energy, then you get that boost in energy. And if you don't, then it falls short. And then, of course, you don't get that boost in energy. This is starting to paint a picture to you, having you understand realize and recognize at a subatomic level, at an electron level, actually, how light is so important. Our light diet, our light environment, how it is so critically important to your well-being, to my well-being, to our well-being. And you start to get the picture. You can't get this energetic boost from the blue light screen from the very computer, desktop, laptop, iPad, notepad, cell phone that you're watching this video from. You cannot, because it does not have the infrared light coming from the sun. It's not a natural source. It's considered dirty energy. It's blue light toxic for you, which is why you have to, once you realize and recognize this, you can offset it by going outside multiple times of the day, first thing in the morning, after sunrise, before 10 a.m., get out there, get grounded like a sphinx on all fours, having your hands and feet touch the grass, looking up toward the sky, eastbound towards the sun, not at the sun, because you don't want to burn your retinas, right? But looking towards the sun, looking at that blue spectrum of light that's coming from the sky that is natural, because it's affected obviously by the rays of the sun. That is feeding you UVA, UVB light, which turns into vitamin A and vitamin D. And also it's helping your kidney. There's different frequencies for different organs of the body. So as you expose your eyes and your skin to that outdoor light, it's going to affect you have different frequencies of light to affect different frequencies in the body, different organs and organ systems in the body. That's how it's all kind of tied and connected. And of course, then when you eat your environment in the form of fruits, vegetables, potatoes, legumes, berries, and so forth, then you're bringing those light frequencies into your body as well. So you see how it's both not just a consumption through eating, but also through absorption of light that's coming in contact with your skin, which is why the medium of activating your original stem cells with these photobiomodulation patches is so powerful, because it's redirecting your infrared light back in. It's mirroring it back into the body to immediately turn on, activate 33% of your previously dormant stem cells. This is all a story about all 56 trillion cells, and at the heart, your stem cells. All right, let's keep moving on here. So on the other hand, if the photon does not have enough energy for electrons to reach the higher orbital, meaning the wrong light spectra, nothing changes. The electron ignores the photon and stays in its present orbital. These phenomena explain the absorption of spectrum of element, as well as their emission spectrum. Plant electrons maintain their excited state until an ETC in any consumer recaptures the light in increments. Picture this: as an electron jumps from one spot to spot along the respiratory chain, the energy previously captured in photosynthesis is then released. That's the discharge of energy. Respiratory complexes collect this light energy on light-sensitive proteins called chromophores. On light-sensitive proteins called chromophores. The word chromo for is letting us know that chromo has to do with color, the light color spectrum. Okay, that's why it's chromophores or porphyrins, and use it for whatever the body needs at that time. This is how mitochondria harvest photonic energy from food. And this is the code that tells mitochondria the conditions in which that plant was grown. Then they use this information to tell your infraradian system which seasonal programming to run. And that's why the circadian rhythms of not just your eyes, but all the systems in your body is connected to your environment, depending on the sunlight spectrum for the season in which you're living in. The infrared light that you have inside your body and that you're receiving from the outside is all connected. However, when we're in front of these modern day technology devices like desktops, laptops, iPads, notepads, cell phones, etc., the problem is that is a disruptor to those circadian rhythms. So that's why people get blue light toxicity from exposure to these devices. And plus, on top of that, you have the electromagnetic frequencies. On top of that, you also have the radio wave frequencies from the 5G, 4G, wherever it is that you might be. Didn't mean to make that rhyme, but it did. I just noticed. And in places like Finland, they have 6G already. They've had it for like over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So that's a greater disruptor. So once you're aware of that, at the beginning, it doesn't do you much harm because you haven't had accumulated damage in the body. But over time, if you're not aware that you need to get out in natural sunlight and that you need to eat more healthy God-made food instead of processed man-made food, then you're going to start to notice what we call in the industry mitochondrial dysregulation. That's basically your mitochondria are out of whack, which is the beginning of disease. And if on top of that, you're not drinking enough water, now your proteins start to fold, and now you start to have 1, 2, or more systems of the body that start to break down, and that's illness. That's chronic or acute illness due to environment. It all started with your environment, whether it's eaten or whether it's exposure. Does that make sense? It's starting to paint a clearer picture, I hope, for you. And that's my goal, is in breaking down this book and explaining those nuances that otherwise might elude you. Okay. So then they use this information to tell your infraradian system which seasonal programming to run. The universe telling you, pay attention to this. In this way, food is a ferry for light. It's basically a transportation. Food is a transportation system, or a light barcode, as Dr. Jack Kruse says. It's just a light barcode that then your body breaks down into light in the body for information and for nutrition. So let's say, then use this information to tell your infraradian system which seasonal programming to run. In this way, food is a ferry for light. Food electrons haul light energy around in their orbital state, and until mitochondria can transform it back into light proper. At that point, if you think about it, I'm going to pause here. If you think about it, it's kind of a giant recycling system, because the light is coming from outside. We are light beings. We are taking our environment that we're eating in the form of food, lettuce, oranges, lemons, grapefruits, beets, berries, etc. So that's a light barcode. So that's bringing the light into our body that is further feeding us as light beings. Literally, we're light beings. We have 56 trillion cells. Who knows how many electrons that is, but that's quite a bit of electrons. And on top of the electrons, we also have photons. Holy smokes, starting to get the picture here, how much light there is inside our bodies? A lot. So we're recycling this energy, recycling light, which is an energy form. And again, I hope that this makes you very well aware and start to pay attention and notice and become aware of the LED lights, which are not good for you. You want to switch them out to, you might want to do what I do, which is switch them out to incandescence, because that is not as harmful as a LED light, which gives you blue light toxicity, not to mention all the electronics in your house, which all have LED lights. All right, moving on here. So at that point, respiratory complexes will often transform higher frequencies like UV into a type of light that mitochondria need at the moment, such as infraradian. Add it all up, and we can see why biology's special skill in the universe is that it's learned how to take excited electrons and capture the sun's photonic energy as the electrons fall back into a ground state, a lower energy orbital. Fundamental to our connection with light, this is how biology harvests both energy and information from food electrons. So, my friends and gems, that's this section of page 42. I wish the camera would focus a little bit better. It's not being very cooperative today, but you basically get the picture. Page 42, we just read this section, and we are going to, when we come back, we're going to return to membranes, our electromagnetic antenna. I want you to think about that, membrane. So if you were to look at, let's make believe that this is a cell. The white part, I'm gonna put it against my hair so that you can see the darkness. You see the tan part in the middle. Let's make believe that that's a cell. Let's make believe that this white area is the membrane. And membranes are electromagnetic antenna. Who mentioned this first over 25 years ago? Actually, over 30 years ago, maybe actually over 40 years ago. It was Dr. Bruce Lipton, the father of epigenetics. Bruce Lipton started doing stem cell research in the 60s, the early 60s, before I was even born. He was doing stem cell and cloning research back in the 60s. And he taught medical school through the 70s and the 80s. And he discovered in his research that it's not the nucleus. The nucleus is not the brain of the cell. It's actually the cell membrane that is an electromagnetic interface, if you will, with the interior of the cell and the exterior. Whatever environmental surrounds the cell affects the expression of that cell. Fascinating. Okay. When we come back, we're going to come back to that. Membranes are electromagnetic antenna. So thank you for tuning in, tapping in, turning on to this episode of Love and Money Secrets TV. If you or someone you know is interested in learning more about how you can redirect and turn back on a third of your previously dormant master smart cells through the use of this photobiomodulation patch, we have the Fantastic Five. I talk about this all the time on this show. It's wafer thin. You see I'm wearing one right now. I actually have the Fantastic Five on my neck bump, and this is an additional Eon patch, which is an anti-inflammatory patch. I have it on acupuncture point K27, and this does brain balancing while managing inflammation in the body, and it increases something called anti-neoplastins. If you don't know what anti-neoplastins are, I do talk about it when we do our info Q&A sessions. I want to invite you, tonight at 7 p.m., come to DameLillianZoom.com at 7 p.m. We're going to have a miracle hour. We're going to talk about how to activate your original master smart cells to optimize and increase the energy in your body. And if you're interested in getting started on photobiomodulation patches to activate and to repair and restore your body, you get to ask all the questions pertinent to you and your particular symptoms, and we'll kind of take it from there. Our number one thing is to share about this life-saving technology with others. All right, take care, my friends.